We are from Group 5, and my name is Ji Xiaoni, and my metric number is 263290. The title that we will discuss is: first, we will discuss the origin of neoclassical school and step through extension of economic analysis by that school as compared to earlier classical and marginalist school. And the second question is, we will explain also how Alfred Maslow in neoclassical school combined the idea of Adam Smith in classical school and William Stanley Jimwas in marginalist school to further expand the theory of value, which is in market price of goods and service. First of all, I want to discuss about the origin of neoclassical school. The microeconomic thought of the marginalist was transformed to neoclassical economics. Neo means new and neoclassicism means new form of classism. The neoclassical economists were marginalist to the curious sense to their emphasize decision making and price determination at the margin. Neoclassical school is quite unique compared to other schools of economic thought discussed earlier because they did not have 5 major questions. They draw on the idea of their predecessors in classical and marginalist and develop them further. The greatest figure in the neoclassical school is Alfred Maslow. The second is I want to discuss about the extension of the economic analysis by the neoclassical school as compared to classical and marginalist school. First, neoclassical stress both demand and supply in determine the market price, goods, service, and resources, while the classical stress on supply alone and the marginalist stress only demand in value theory, which is will discussed by us later. And the second is survival of the neoclassical economists. For example, Wicksell and Fisher took a far greater interest in the role of money in the economy than did the earlier classical and marginalists in monetary economy. And the third one is neoclassical economics extend marginal analysis to market structure other than poor competition, poor monopoly, and duopoly in the imperfect competition market. But in this assignment, we will be focused only on a value theory and the monetary economy and imperfect competition market we will discuss by the next group, which is Group 6. In this assignment, we will focus on first discuss the biography and contribution of Alfred Maslow in develop the idea of neoclassical school, and the second is comparing the view of Adam Smith in classical school, William Stanley Jimwas in marginalist school, and the Alfred Maslow in neoclassical school on the theory of value, which is in market price of goods and service. Furthermore, we will also would like to know these economists respond to the following question. First is, do peer have value because people die for them? And the second is, do people die for peer because peer have value? That's all from me. Thank you.
My name is Wang Xi, metric number is 262804. My part is discuss about Alfred Maslow's biography and contributions. Alfred Maslow was born on 26 July 1842 at Bournemouth, London, England, and died on 13 July 1924. He was the greatest figure in the neoclassical school, and Maslow was the son of a cashier in the Bank of England. So his father overweight him in study, made him promise never play chess because it was wasting time, and tried to banish Max from the boy life because it is irrelevant to the ministry. Young Maslow rejected a scholarship as Oxford, instead attended Cambridge, where he devoted himself to maths, physics, and economics. He was aided by a well-to-do uncle because his father, simply being too poor to pay for his tuition fee when he gave up on scholarship. And he was hypochondriac, with his main really concern about his health, and he's hypocritical about his writing. And he threw much of what he wrote into the wastebasket, and in fact, many of his major ideas were worked out a decade or more before they appeared in Principles of Economy in 1890. And Maslow criticized Jevons for rushing into print before his were ready. About his contribution, Maslow was a great synthesizer, which is combined the best of classical economy with the marginalist thinking to become neoclassical theory. He popularized the modern diagrammatic approach to economics. He was an expert mathematician, however, he only played math in footnotes and appetizers. Marxism defined economy as a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life, and it examines that part of individual and social action which is more closely connected with the attainment and with the use of material requisites of well-being. According to Marx, economists like other sciences, which is focused on collect, arrange, interpret, and draw inferences from facts, and also seek knowledge of the independence of economy, phenomena of cause and effect relationships. Marx also mentioned that economy is not a body of concrete truth, but rather an engine for the discovery of concrete truth. Economic laws are social laws that relate to human conduct in which the strength of the major motive can be measured by financial supplies. Marx and others who developed macroeconomic approach by saying little about business cycle. It was left to later aggregate economists in macroeconomy to grapple with such problems. In 50 years of writing, Marx succeeds to produce about 82 publications. And next session will compare the views on the theory of value from the perspective of 3 persons, which is the first one is Adam Smith, represent as classical school. The second one is William Stanley Jevons, represent as marginalist school. And the last one is Alfred Marxist, represent to the neoclassical school. That's all from me. Thank you.
My name is Fong Jia. My matric number is 261968. Now I will continue the part of classical school Adam Smith. Diamond water paradox. There are two kinds of value. The first one is the value in use, VIU, and the second one is value in exchange, VIE. The value in use is the utility of some particular object. There are things which have greatest VIU, have frequently little or no VIE. For example, water has greatest VIU but little VIE. The value in exchange is the power of purchasing other goods which the possession of that object conveys. Those have frequently little or no VIU have greatest VIE. For example, diamond has little VIU but greater VIE. Adam Smith failed to solve the diamond water paradox because he did not understand this concept. The first one is the total utility and marginal utility, and the second one is the law of diminishing marginal utility. As a result, Adam Smith directed his analysis only on exchange value. He discussed his theory of value in primitive society and advanced society. Next, the primitive society. Adam Smith argued that in primitive society, labor was the only resource. The relative value of a good would be determined by the amount of labor necessary to produce it. Value of any commodity to a person who possesses it if he wishes to exchange it for other commodities is equal to the quantity of labor which it enables him to purchase or command. So, the labor cost should equal to the labor command. Second one is advanced society. Adam Smith realized that the growth of capital would invalidate a simple labor cost theory of value. Normally, goods will be exchanged with other goods for money or labor at a figure high enough to cover wage, rent, and profit. The profit will depend on the whole value of the capital advanced by employer. The quantity of labor that a commodity can buy exceeds the quantity of labor embodied in its production by the total profit and rent. So the labor cost should be less than the labor command. According to Adam Smith, the beer have value because people need to die for them. So the cost of production determines a goods exchange value or the price. That's all for me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Janelle Chankayan. My matrix number is 262865. Just now, my friend have been present to you about classical school from Adam Smith. Now I will continue to the marginalist school from William Stanley Jevons. Jevons has solved the diamond water paradox by explaining the concept of three items: total utility, marginal utility, and law of diminishing marginal utility. Let's take a look about it. Total utility. The total utility is the total satisfaction a person receives from consuming a particular quantity of a good, where marginal utility is additional utility a person receives from consuming an additional unit of a particular good, where the third is the law of diminishing marginal utility, where marginal utility gained by consuming equal successive units of a good will decline as the amount consumed increase. In diamond water paradox, it says that total utility of water is high because water is extremely useful, but total utility of diamond is low because diamonds are not as useful as water. But the question is, if total utility of water is greater than the total utility of diamonds, why isn't the price of water is greater than the price of diamonds? The diamond water paradox resolved because prices does not reflect total utility, but marginal utility does. Marginal utility of water is smaller than marginal utility of diamonds because water is so plentiful, but the diamonds are scarce, is rare. As a result, the next unit or additional unit of water gives us less utility than the next unit of diamonds. People would rather have an additional diamond than an additional unit of water, given large stock of water. As a summary, Jevons from marginalist school emphasized that demand, which is utility, as the significant determinant of price. According to Jevons, cost of production determines supply. Supply determines final degrees of utility. Final degree of utility determines value. For the Jevons opinion on the value of pearl, it says that do pearl have value because people need to die for them, or do people die for pearls because pearls have value? According to Jevons, he say people die for pearls because pearls have value. Buyers get utility from them. That's all from me. My friend will explain to you about the neoclassical from Alfred Marshall.
Hello, hi, a very good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rubini Dr. Ravi, metric number 253314. So last but not the least, we are going to share more on the famous economist who is the contributor of neoclassical school named Alfred Marshall. And I believe that everyone knows Alfred Marshall as per the picture in our slide, or even in your studies, or even in the early of our presentation, we have also studied more on the biography. So now we're going to go for the contribution of Alfred Marshall. So simply to say that his theory is a combination of the best classical economics and also the marginalist thinking. So the combination of classical and marginalist becomes neoclassical. So basically, on his theory, Marshall has stressed out on both supply and demand in determining the market prices of goods, service and resources. So this is because previously we have also looked on Jevons marginally school, which is also emphasized on demand, and also Adam Smith in classical school emphasized on supply. So here Marshall approach and definition is quite interesting, which is the relationship between the supply, demand and even the prices that tend to produce certain result if they are allowed to work by themselves, but society can still influence the outcome if so desires. So it means that according to Marshall, how demand works, we could say that one of the part is based on the law of diminishing marginal utility. So for example, when a consumer need more and more unit of a commodity, then the marginal utility derived from every successive units going to decline. So Marshall also introduced that two important qualifications at this point. First, he was concerned with a moment in time which it is too short to consider any changes in character or the tastes of a particular person. And secondly, the law of diminishing also concerns about the consumer's goods that is indivisible. So this approach of Marshall system deals with the pleasures and pains, desires, aspirations and even incentives to the action. So next, let us see on the example how to measure the utility that intangible. So the early marginalists said the strength of a person's preferences determine the amount of money they are willing to spend to acquire some products. However, Marshall turned the relationship around to measure the preferences according to the scale, financial scale to the payment. For example, we can see the example of this shoe and hats. For example, shoes are twice as useful as hat. So you are willing to pay the twice as much for the shoes compared to the hat. So because you are willing to pay as much for the shoes compared to the hat, even the prices are $40 for the shoes and 20 ringgit for the hat, we would be conclude that the shoes yield twice as much utility to you. So this is one of the examples that could be seen. So besides, Marshall are also concerned on the rational consumer choice. In the money economy, Marshall also said that each line of expenditure will be pushed to the point at which marginal utility of dollars is worth of the goods be the same as in any direction of spending. So each person attains this result by constantly watching to see whether there is anything on which he is spending so much that he would gain by taking a little away from the line of expenditure and putting them in another line. So it is simply to say your marginal utility of both over the prices should be equal. This is what the law of equal marginal comes. For example, the other things being equal, a consumer will distribute his money income on different goods in such a way the ratio of marginal utilities and their prices tends to be equal. So that is what the Marshall successfully tied into the equi-marginal rule, directly to the contemporary of law of demand. So therefore, he also have come up with the law of demand. So for example, he followed directly from his notion of diminishing marginal utility and the rational consumer choice. Marshall has clear a conception of differences between the changes in the quantity of demand, which can be measured along the horizontal axis, and also the changes of demand, which can also see with the entire shift of the curve. So in formulating his theory of demand, assuming that the purchasing power of money is constant. For example, when the price of this X object falls, then there are two effects at work that increase the quantity purchased. For example, the substitution effect, which is relative to the price effect, or even the income effect, which is related to our income itself. So additionally, in Marshall demand concept, he also informed us the consumer surplus theory. So basically what is consumer surplus theory is the differences between the total expenditure consumer are willing to pay and what they actually pay, as shown in the graph in the slide. For example, Marshall asserted that the total utility of a good is the sum of successive marginal utility of each added unit. It means that the price of a person pays for a good not exceeds or seldom equal which consumers willing to pay rather than they go without a desired object. Right? So last but not least, we also can see that the theory of Marshall have come up with the elasticity of demand formula. So the elasticity of demand formula, which is the percentage changes in the quantity over the changes in the price, is going to give you the elasticity of an object. So for example, when you are trying to compute with this formula, we could say that the elasticity, if higher than 1, then it is elastic, while if it is less than 1, it is inelastic. This is because the quantity is even lower than the changes in the price, while the elasticity is equal to 1 if the both quantity and the changes of the prices are equal. It is called unit elastic. So, and you may also see more examples on the price elasticity of demand in the 26th slide of us, and also how the changes of the quantity and the price going to affect the graph. So this is what all about the Marshall demand theory. So, and let's next we see about the emphasized of supply theory from Marshall. That's all from me. Thank you.
I'm the last presenter. My name is Kaylee, metric number 263221. So now I'm going to continue with the presentation. On the other side of the determination is supply. Marshall said supply is determined by the cost of production. He also divided time into 3 periods: immediate present, short run, and long run. In the immediate present, it is referred to the time frame that is too short. Quantity supplied cannot be increased in response to a sudden increase in demand, and cannot decrease immediately in response to a decline in demand, because it takes time to be reduced. The market supply curve is perfectly inelastic. Short run is defined as that period during which the variable inputs can be increased or decreased, but fixed costs cannot be changed. It is also divided costs into 2 types: supplementary costs, fixed costs that cannot be changed in whatever level of production. Prime cost is a variable cost that can be changed directly, followed by the production. For example, labor and raw materials. In the short run, supply curve is based on the variable cost. Variable cost curves are sloped upwards from left to right. The higher the product price, the larger the quantity supplied. The last one is long run. All costs are variable, and they must be covered if the firm is to continue in business. The increase in price can cause total revenue exceed total cost in production, which is profit. For new firms that enter in the market, if the price falls below the average cost, capital must reduce, and probably the firm will exit the industry. So we can see that supply is seen in terms of finance and subjective costs, while demand is based on utility and diminishing marginal utility. In the periods of production, in inputs and costs. For short run, the inputs used are fixed and variable, while in the long run, there's only one input used, which is variable. For the costs associated with inputs, in the short run, there's 2, fixed cost and variable cost, while in the long run, there's only one, variable cost. The definition of cost. The fixed cost in short run, cost that cannot be changed as output changes. Variable cost is the cost that changes as output changes. In the long run, variable cost is cost that change as output changes. For Marshall determination of equilibrium, the haggling and bargaining of the market will result in a price close to 36 ringgit. which is exactly equal to the quantities demanded and supplied, 700. For the next one, I'll be showing you a graph showing that the consumer surplus and producer surplus. This figure graphically shows Marshall's equilibrium price and quantity. Point E is the equilibrium price and quantity. Marshall also presented the idea of the consumer surplus and producer surplus, which is shown in the figure. CBE is a consumer surplus, while B, E, and A is a producer surplus. So as a summary of it, the neoclassical school emphasized demand and supply as a significant determinant of price. First, introduce the concept of consumer and producer surplus. Second, added the element of time in economic analysis. Third one is illustrated the idea of equilibrium price and quantity using table and graph approach. In Marshall's opinion on the value of pearl, do pearls have value because people need to die for them? Or do people die for the pearls because pearls have value? This is a very good question. According to Marshall, both statements are correct. Pearls have value because people need to die for them, which is also emphasized as cost of production. And people die for pearls because pearls have value, which is also emphasized that buyers get utility. As the conclusion, Adam Smith emphasized that supply as the significant determinant of exchange value, while Jevons, marginalist school, emphasized that demand as the significant determinant of price. For the neoclassical school, Marshall emphasized both demand and supply as the significant determinant of price. So with that, I thank you.